welcome to Marine Mike's Hobby Adventures. Today we're going to be discussing 3 different types of composting methods. There's many different methods, but we're going to be discussing 3. If you don't know, compost to gardeners is considered black gold because of all its benefits that it can provide for the garden. A YouTuber commented on my last composting video and asked why this compost bin looks so different from the one he wanted to buy. Also, how do you know when they're ready? Talking about the compost. Those are 2 good questions that I'll get to. Alright, so like I was saying, 3 of many ways to compost. There's holding units, which is what I have, and it just goes from one section to the next to the next, but it can be any kind of holding unit. It can be a small barrel, it can be a trash can, it can be anything. It can even be on your kitchen counter if you live in a small apartment. There's always ways to compost. Then you have turning units, which that's what he was talking about, was a turning unit where it's a barrel. You can typically buy them online for around 150 or so as of this date. And you put your compost in there, you mix it by turning the barrel. And there's also some DIY barrels that people have made out of 2x4s and just a 55-gallon drum. Then you have your heaps, which is literally a pile left to do its thing. You'll see them out on farmland sometimes where it looks like a big pile of dirt, but actually what they're doing is using it as compost. Different types of composting. You've got hot and cold that we'll talk about today. Personally, I prefer hot, and there's a few good reasons why. If you leave it as a cold compost, a cold compost is going to require the minimum amount of effort, but it could take a year or 2 before it produces good quality compost. Well, like I said though, if you put a pile out there, it's going to do its thing. It's going to decompose. Now, the reason why I prefer a hot compost is because if you can see, which I'm not sure how the video is going to turn out, but you can see I've got a smaller version, a thicker version, and then what looks to be green. And all this is just grass. Grass with a little bit of shredded paper, cardboard, carbon materials like that. But as far as grass, it's all considered a nitrogen. So since I've got grass and I've got some weeds in there and grass seed, the reason I like to do a hot compost is because it's going to range anywhere from 130 to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. And what happens there is it'll actually kill, at that temperature, it'll kill the seeds, and it'll also kill some of the disease pathogens that may be in your composting bins. And also, the reason why I like a hot compost is it shortens the time of decomposition to a few weeks. Like I said, whereas cold compost could take a year or 2. Now, this type of compost bin is the 3-bin system. And what it is you put your brand new materials in here, and then once you turn them over into this bin. And then once you turn them again, you turn them into here. Now, since I'm working with just grass and a little bit of shredded paper, I kind of flip-flop it around. It doesn't have to be exact, like I was saying in some of the other videos. Composting, gardening, self-sufficiency can be as simple or as hard as you make it. It's really up to you. So, when do you turn your compost? For me, I turn it as often as possible, but everything in moderation. Don't go overboard. If you're turning it every day, 1, you're going to be very tired. 2, it's not going to have time to actually heat up and do its thing. So what I do is I come out here and I wet it down, and I'll also check the temperature on it. Now, if it starts to get too cold, below the 130, or if it starts to get hotter than 160, I'll turn the pile and or add water depending on the situation. And as far as materials, a lot of people talk about 50-50 ratio of carbon and nitrogen, which I'll discuss shortly. And then also people talk about the 30-to-1 ratio by volume. And I follow both of those rules very loosely. The reason why, like I was saying, is I've primarily just got grass in here, and I'm not sure if you can tell, but it's actually breaking down quite well. Now, when you add water, you want to make it like a wet sponge, but not soaking wet to where you see water just dripping out. If it's got too much water, the microorganisms are going to drown out, the bugs are going to drown out, worms, stuff like that. If you have it too dry, they're not going to have a way to travel in and out of the compost. And then when do you know it's finished? When you know it's finished is when you pick it up and it no longer looks like grass, it no longer looks like shredded paper or any type of kitchen scraps that you've put in it. When you look at it and it looks dark brown, crumbly, smells like earth or has an earthy tone to the smell, you know it's ready. Until then, you just keep turning it. So some of the things that you should not put in your compost: dairy products, fat, meats. That's why they say don't use cat feces or dog feces. Now, as far as cow manure, goats, chickens, rabbits, all of that can go in your compost. That's perfectly fine. But anything that is carnivorous, do not put it in your compost. All right, so they actually call it a compost temperature gauge, and you can stick it down into your compost. I bought a cheap little red laser temperature gun, and currently outside it is 73 in the shade. And like I was saying, this is just fresh grass I cut in my yard 2 days ago, so it's just been sitting here. Some of it was a little damp, some of it was pretty dry. As you can tell, the sun has dried out quite a bit of it. And I just take my pitchfork, pitch it in, and right now that is burning at 147. I don't know if you can see that or not, but 147 was the max I got out of there. And that's just the very top layer. Now it's going to be a little warmer the further down it goes, and also the bigger your pile is. You know, if it's right here and it's good, been turned, been wet, been layered, then it's going to be pretty hot. We'll check this one real quick. So this one here has 2 or 3 different mows on it, or what I mean by that is I've mowed it 2 or 3 times the yard and put it in here and mixed it about. So you can see here that this is grass. This looks like grass, and it has not broke down very much. It is warm already though. Now when you compare it to this, you see that that's more browning and starting to break down. That's what I'm talking about. And then the end result, you've got stuff that looks more closely related to dark earth. Now this is starting to really break down nice. But compared to grass, and this is only this mow season, and here it is in April, so it's only, I think I mowed 4 times since I started mowing this year, and this breaks down quite easily, quite quickly. It's got a little bit of shredded paper, a little bit of organic material from kitchen scraps, but not much. So I'll check this pile, right? It's already steaming off of there. What do we got? 121, 122 is the max right now. And that's only 6-8 inches deep. Now it's probably hotter, lower, like I was saying, but I'll probably need to add water to this one, and I'll let this one keep drying out for a little bit. All right, so now we're at our final pile, and these all started when I mow. I've got 1 acre property, and if the grass is 4 to 6 inches tall, that first bin will almost be completely full. And I mowed yesterday and it's already dropped 40%, so grass compacts quite easily. This one here has, like I was saying, 3 or 4 mows in it, and it's about 50% full. This one's only about 25% full. This one is my final composting area, but given that I'm always going to be mowing almost every week, I'll have to rotate them here and there. It's not necessarily an exact science. You got to do it this way. What's happening is everything's decomposing, and it's going to do its thing. You're just helping it along if you want to speed up the process. So we'll go ahead and check this one. This one's kind of cold. 107 or 107 degrees Fahrenheit. And reason it could be cold is it gets more of the sun right off the bat, and the wind coming from my back normally from the south. So I need to definitely add some water to this one and probably the middle one That first one, I'm going to leave it dry so that green grass can dry out a little bit. But you don't have to add additional things besides grass. Grass will eventually break down. But if you add other carbons, like I was saying, cardboard, shredded paper. I mean, we all have paper and cardboard around our houses. If you don't want to hand shred it, you can pick up a cheap shredder from anywhere. And I picked up a 12-sheet shredder off of Amazon, and it's been shredding cardboard. You know, I don't double up the cardboard, but it shreds it just fine. And then I get a good fill, a good trash bag full, and then I'll come and mix it in, and then put some grass over the top, mix it in some more. And the whole time I do that, I'll spray it down with water, so that way the grass isn't just wet on the top, it's wet all the way through the compost pile. So with the carbon and nitrogen, some carbon materials can be anything from hay to shredded leaves, a little bit of sawdust, chipped wood, newspapers, cardboard egg cartons, not the styrofoam ones, paper towels, as long as they're not greasy and got nasty stuff on them. Toilet paper rolls or paper towel rolls is a good holder, a good composting material. Wood ash, but make sure it's all the way broken down, not coal. So some good nitrogen materials can be your vegetable trimmings if you've got a garden, or vegetables that you've prepared for your dinners. Green leaves are considered nitrogen. And one that a lot of people get confused on is coffee grounds. Even though it's brown and it looks like a carbon, it's actually considered nitrogens. Usually if it's brown, like your leaves or hay or anything like that, that's your carbons, and anything that's green is your nitrogens. But coffee is one of those that has to throw it in the mix. It's usually brown, and it's very high in nitrogen. Once again, any animal manure, as long as it's a herbivore, so try to keep your dog and cat manure out of it. And weeds, they say without seed heads, but that's also one of the reasons why I prefer the hot compost, because it'll actually kill those seeds off. And then human hair and animal hair, that's a personal preference. Personally, I'm going to keep it out of my compost, but I'm sure it'll break down just like everything else does. And the aquarium water, fresh water only. We don't have an aquarium, so I don't have to worry about that. So get a better close-up of the actual grass and composting materials. There we go. Hopefully that'll zoom in. This is your normal grass that I just put in. You can see down here. But that pile right there, just off the top of the surface, that's hot. That's burning my hands actually. And then this one is sort of starting to break down. More browning, but you can still tell that it was grass. And then reach over in here. This is starting to look more like dirt. There we go. Still needs to break down some more though, but like that piece right there, that's a piece of paper. I'd just throw that back in the pile. And then always wash your hands. That's how you prevent pathogens from spreading.